The incentive to do something different for the big companies is missing. It only comes to them under severe pressure. And that's why governments for a few decades now have tried to open borders in order to create pressure for big companies to innovate. Small companies are the reverse.
Olá, o Canal Brasil, uma realização FEComércio São Paulo, está aqui em Washington, na Organização dos Estados Americanos. E nós recebemos agora o professor Nicholas Vonortas, da George Washington University e da Unicamp no Brasil. Professor Vonortas, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Professor Vonortas, I'd like to start our conversation on the issue of innovation. It's common to equate innovation with technological advancement, but you have a concept of innovation that goes beyond just that. What's the meaning of innovation today?
Innovation was never, Galeno, innovation was never a technology issue alone. Innovation is a socio-economic and technological phenomenon, right? You can have the best technology in the world, but if it is not in the right context and if you don't have all these other bits and pieces that require to support it, the technology will fail. If you don't have the finance, if you don't have the services that go around the technology, it will fail. So this has been very well understood these days. And thus, we know that the technology is just one bit of innovation. Innovation is a much more general concept, right?
On the issue of the disruptive changes of the future, I heard you in one of your speeches talking about that is unlikely that the disruptive changes of the future will come from the large companies with vast resources. That seems a bit counterintuitive. Can you elaborate on your reasoning?
Absolutely. It's a very good question, actually. The explanation of this is very simple. Large companies have obviously advantages, and the great advantage that they have, the greatest perhaps, is internal resources. Yeah. So when you innovate, you want some resources, you want support, you want finance, and if you don't have your own resources, you will need to go to somebody who has them and ask for these resources. In the process, this person or organization will ask you for details on your knowledge, right? And there is a disconnect. If you give them all the details, you have nothing to sell anymore because they have everything. If you give them a few details, they don't give you the money. So the big companies, having resources themselves, internal, they have this big advantage. They don't need to go somewhere else to find the finance. They have it internal. The big disadvantage of big companies when it comes to innovation is exactly that they are big and they have name recognition. Mm-hmm. So people know them for something. For example, let's take the automobile industry today. People know Volkswagen, know Mercedes-Benz, know Nissan, know for something. And they are not willing to give this up easily without external pressure because they have the market. They are doing well in this market. Why should they do something different, right? So the incentive to do something different for the big companies is missing. Mm-hmm. It only comes to them under severe pressure. And that's why governments for a few decades now have tried to open borders in order to create pressure for big companies to innovate. Small companies are the reverse. They don't have the internal resources, but they have the incentive to innovate, because otherwise they cannot compete with the big companies face to face, right? It's like Goliath and Samson. I mean, you cannot play the game of the big companies; they will kill you. So you need to zigzag and either go around them or try to find some way to engage in an activity that they are not willing to engage, and thus shake the ground a little bit under them. So this is the issue here. It has nothing to do with resources, or it has to do with incentives. The incumbents in economics, we call them incumbents. That is, they are in the market already. So the incumbent company does not have a great incentive to change things. Why? Why they should change things? I mean, they are doing very well at the way they are.
The uncertainty that if you change the market at something.
So they will spend billions and billions and billions of reais or dollars, and they will give you tiny little innovations in their product, in the existing product, in order to keep you buying the same thing over and over again. And I don't need to name, but we have in our pockets, for example, phones that have not evolved very much recently, right? And if you see the money that we spend, that the companies spend on it, you wonder, I mean, why? Where are all these billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars going? Nothing much changes. And the only reason is the incentive is not there.
They try to react. Maybe we're seeing this right now with the artificial intelligence generative. I will not name names, but the big companies are trying to react after.
That's right. The big companies are reacting to some radical innovations from small companies. Now that they are persuaded that they cannot do otherwise, you see, they throw huge amounts of money to this. Now, I must warn something. Economists who deal with technological advancement also know that there are cycles, and the most typical thing is when a technology emerges and it looks really radical, and people start getting these ideas, oh, this will change the world and all that, then you have absolutely overinvestment. You go to the other. So with artificial intelligence, it's very important technology. It's really going to change a lot. Many things from civilian, all industries, but also military, right? I mean, warfare. Warfare is very much going to be affected by this. So everybody jumps into this, but we will have some corrections. That's at least my opinion. My opinion is we are going very fast. The system, the legal system, and the general support system is not with us. This is and there will be a huge correction, because we will realize down the road that there were mistakes that were made that will need to be corrected, and that's okay. I mean, it has happened with every major technological advancement. All the time. It's very natural. It has nothing to do with the specific technology. It has to do with people getting excited. Everybody gets excited. Yeah, this is the new technology, so I need to get a piece of the action here. And then you have too many resources going that direction.
And the necessity of a regulation by governments, and it's when to have the novelty was automobiles. You have to create rules for them to. It will be need to societies as a whole to create rules for the use of this new technology like artificial intelligence.
So exactly a year ago, we had a major conference that we organized across the street at the university. This was on the ethical aspects and the legal aspects of this particular technology, artificial intelligence. It was us beyond expectation, extremely successful. Just to mention that we attracted 5 members of Congress, five from both sides of the aisle. And all of them said the same thing, all of them, that the technology is great, we will support it, we need to support it, but it needs guardrails. I mean, we need to know where the limits of this technology are, because otherwise, I mean, it's like the Far West, right? And people are scared. People are scared, and obviously there will be negative reaction if we're not careful with it.
Let's change the topic a bit on the issue of the middle income trap from countries, and you talk about the way the global south, Brazil, try to imitate the industries that are already there. How to go from imitation to imitating existing industries to creation, and to try to catch up with the larger economies?
So let me first advertise something, make an advertisement here, and then we will discuss. So in 2021, we published a book, an edited book that you can find is now open access. So anyone can download the full thing for free with Oxford University Press. So this book was in preparation for 5 years with some of the top people in the world, and actually Campinas, Unicamp playing a big role, because 2 events relating to the book happened in Campinas. The book is about challenges of emerging economies in catching up. And obviously, Brazil had took a significant part. So several chapters of the book, a number of chapters, and one that I contributed as well, were on Brazil. But they are also on other very important countries like China, like the others that, you know, all the emerging economies. A major aspect of attention there in those discussions was exactly the transition. The transition from there, roughly speaking, with the middle income, there are 2 stages of development. You go from a less developed stage to a middle stage. And that first stage involves a lot of sweat, concentration of resources, in some direction, and a lot of sweating. People do not get paid well. There is an activity to invest heavily in certain directions, and Brazil certainly went through that stage. And then you reach then you sort of narrow the gap, and you reach a point where if you want to keep competing, you start meeting in the markets the big, as we were saying in the past, the big boys and the big, right? So you go now to the markets and you meet the people that are very competitive. At that point, you need to start coming up with your own unique ideas. So several important economists, and particularly one that I had the luck to have as a teacher, William Baumol, was proposing this concept of imitative entrepreneurship. So it's not just imitation, is that you from the pure imitation just do the same product that somebody tells you cheaper. Right? You go to a stage now in the middle income, somewhere there, where indeed you cannot come up with completely far out ideas, but ideas that are relatively new to the world can be adapted and create a new version that is your version. That is imitative entrepreneurship. Right? So yeah, the original idea is somebody else's, but you are entrepreneurial. You are working with it. That is a stage where policies that help you to do the first step start becoming obsolete, because now it's not very clear anymore as it was before which direction you go. It starts becoming sort of fuzzy. And then new kind of different policies are coming into play, where the government may kind of retreat a little bit, more hands-off, and let the private sector. Not that the government role decreases, it changes. It changes more into a background role, making sure that there is support for these people, making sure that ideas are coming in, making sure that companies and universities work together, make sure that there are regional systems of innovation with all that a system has, right? That stage actually for some industries, I keep talking about Brazil, but there are other countries. Brazil, I know a little bit better from Latin America. Brazil in several industries definitely reached that stage, right? And it's moving forward. Everybody knows about aircraft. Aircraft, of course, is very innovative. Everybody knows about biofuels, but agriculture in Brazil is flourishing, right? Is fantastic, in a fantastic condition. Energy now is playing a big role, and so forth. Health also, research in health. As you cross that stage, you are in the middle income stage, and the policies start shifting, and the role of the government sort of is changing. If successful, if that transition is successful, then it will propel you close to the front, right? And at that point, your policies must be very different from those that start you up. This is actually the problem that many economists, including myself also, have with the current road of China. China, instead of going that direction, is going the different direction. The government is assuming more and more control of the economy, and that, to us at least, to these people on that side, doesn't look exactly right. What it will actually create the Chinese miracle.
So on China, the rise of China in the last 35, 40
Yes.
years was impressive. And it turns a street that was not perceived before, as you just mentioned. What's the impact that not only China has in the global value chains, but the future? What the impact that it will have on the world as a whole? And after this, for the countries like Brazil, Latin America, so.
Well, I know the subject fairly well because even last night in the classroom we were discussing actually about China. There are some very interesting interviews on the internet that you can see on YouTube. An important economist called Michael Pettis has given very, very interesting accounts of what's going on. He's an expert on China. China obviously has had tremendous progress the last 2-3 decades, right, since it opened up. Nobody denies this. I mean, the Chinese worked very hard. They really had targets. They have accomplished a lot, but now have come in a different stage in their development. So the model that brought them where they are today, or where they reach in mid-teens, let's say, is not the model that will take them to the front. And to make it much more specific, China today needs to export in order to keep going. That has created for them a tremendous vulnerability. They have not been able to increase, even though the government proclaims that it has been trying all these years, but they have not been able to increase domestic consumption. Domestic consumption of China is ridiculously slow, is very low, lower beyond everything that we know in economics. And the investment portion of the GDP is tremendously high, right? So what is going on there? Resources are being moved from the consumer, continue to be moved from the consumer to the producer, which is the previous model, the model that brought them to this stage, right? Through various, you can think of various ways. An exchange rate that is not the real one, interest rates that do not favor the savers, they favor the borrowers, subsidies. So you move resources continuously towards industry, and now that the real estate does not look very good, towards increasingly towards manufacturing. So you produce products that the locals cannot consume. It's very simple. The locals cannot consume these products. So what do? You have to send them abroad, the products. Now, if China was a country of the size of Ghana, or of, I don't know, Thailand maybe, although Thailand is bigger, but some smaller country, this would not matter very much. But China is a huge economy. So when we say that China produces, manufacturers produce a lot, large quantities, right? So the United States and Europe have been the absorbers, the primary, the absorbers of this. This creates problems for us, right? For a significant time, the American government sort of chose to look on the other way and kept things going because there are also benefits to the consumers here, right? I mean, cheap products. So the governments, but now this has become a political issue, as you see, right? It's unsustainable. So the problem will be for China if the United States, and I guess it will be followed by Europe, say, basta, we don't want this. They will have to push those products to you, to Brazil, and to Indonesia, and to the others. Somebody must buy those products because it's simple economics. The global accounts need to close. Surpluses of one country must be met with deficits of another country. At the end, you must have equilibrium, right? So this is what I think is going to be I agree with Michael, is a major problem for China. They have to increase their internal consumption. Otherwise, they will continue to depend on exports to just keep going. So they have several issues. They have huge debts, internal debts. They have a consumption that is not very good. They have now geopolitical problems. So their position is a little bit, even though they've made all these miracles, I mean, a lot of progress since the 1980s, you can expect from countries like Brazil that there will be increasing pressure from China to actually open up and take their products because they have no choice. Increasing the consumption, the internal consumption, is a very long proposition. That cannot happen from one day to the next. What you can do is temporary relief, like spreading money, borrowing, the Chinese government borrowing, and then giving checks to the Chinese consumers to consume. But how much you can do that, right? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that's it. I mean, this is temporary. Really what you need is a rebalancing of the economy, and that takes time.
Professor Vonortas, there's a perception, at least in Latin America and Global South, of declining efficiency of state. And efforts to modernize them, efforts that meet resistance. With your knowledge of Brazil, in which areas Brazil should concentrate to try to modernize the state to make it more efficient? Change. We are trying it for 7 decades now.
Change is always difficult, right? I mean, it's more comfortable to stay with what you have.
Yeah.
Change is difficult. In my view, and that view can be challenged. In my view, one of the difficulties that Brazil has faced over time is that actually it protected its internal industries, both domestic and foreign, too much, for too long, right? There is a very valid argument in economics that people know as the infant industry argument. That means you start an industry, and while it is infant, young, you help it. You help it until it stands on its feet. And then you open up to compete. Brazil has protected its industries for quite a while. And that has created internal dynamics where governments are captured by the industries. We are fighting the same issue here with the big five companies. The same. When you have companies that are so important that you cannot let them fail, it's becoming, you are a captive to them. So I observed the last few years, several years I've been going to Brazil, and I observed that all the products are more expensive, right? The cars are more expensive, the consumer things are more expensive. And that is not real, actually. I mean, it's because the local industries are protected. Now, there are huge exceptions to this. I mean, companies like Natura, companies like Embraer, others go internationally. Your producers of agriculture and so forth, and they go international. Of course, they are there, but the majority of Brazilian industry is protected. That does not help them really. It does not help them because they live in a comfortable cocoon. And thus, when they will meet the foreign competition, they will crumble. And that is a difficulty. In that book that I told you, we have this one chapter with the effort of the governments, of the labor governments in the past, in the previous version, to establish a shipbuilding industry in Brazil as a result of the finds of the new oil discoveries. And you will see in that chapter that things fell apart mostly, not because there were not good plans or good intentions. Everybody had a good intention. It was a great opportunity. It was fantastic. There were much more mundane things that were missing. Managers were not there. People to weld iron were not there. When you are not open, you are not competing really directly with some, which is dangerous to compete, then you do not know what you are missing actually. And when the time comes, you don't have it. So now, to tell you that I go around various places in the world and in Brazil, and people ask me, what do we do now? And I tell them it's a huge opportunity. Right now, for countries like Brazil, this is a huge opportunity because there is a major reorganization of investment around the world, right? Major. So the way we were investing before and the way we were thinking about investing has changed because words like resilience came into the equation. That means that the countries that are kind of ready to attract this investment have a major opportunity. Not everybody will attract that investment because if you are not ready, I mean, there are alternatives, right? I mean, there are many places that this investment can go. But if you are ready, Brazil is one of those countries that can be ready. It's ready in certain industries and can be much more ready. So it's a huge opportunity. Thus, a little bit more opening up to accept investment, it cannot be bad at all. All you need, I tell you, if I was, all you need is to make sure that the foreign investment actually links to the rest of your industry. The country should not be somebody comes in and sits there and doesn't connect to anybody else. Then that is not a very good investment. But somebody comes and then links to the local industry that supports them, that is a very good investment.
Professor Vonortas, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you very much and good luck.